Who is interested in how the R1250 GS performs against the new R1300 GS? I rode them both here in Andalusia for 3 days, and now I've got all the information and emotions to share with you. Stay tuned! So many feelings come up, memories of the GS during the COVID lockdown. I was here with my son and we went on beautiful trips together with the R1250 GS. Many of you have probably had similar experiences. We went through thick and thin with this motorcycle, and BMW have sold tens of thousands of these. And now comes there, the new know-it-all who wants to dethrone this legend. But is that even possible? Many GS riders would probably disagree with the fact that this new, slim, new know-it-all wants to be better than the old. However, I think it is the biggest development in the history of the GS. The best thing about the new motorcycle is the fact that it rides the way it looks. Testing them both, I can't help but notice how much rougher the old bike is in comparison. They're both honest bikes, but the old one is simply much rougher. I do recognize, however, that many people love exactly that characteristic of the bike. Nevertheless, BMW have decided that it's time to modernize this bike. Let's go through it chapter by chapter. Let's start right with the engine. Look at this. Look at this beauty, the 1250 engine. In reality, you could keep selling this bike as is for the next 100 years, and most people who ride it would be satisfied. The new 1300 engine still has that awesome torque curve, don't worry. Yes, I know it has less stroke, yeah. I know it has a longer final drive, yeah, longer 5th and 6th gear, no problem at all. It still has that insane punch at low revs. What it doesn't have anymore, and that's due to the electronics, is that when you're going into a corner and you're coming out of a corner and you go full throttle, it won't feel like somebody hits you with a sledgehammer into your back anymore, completely nullifying your traction on the rear wheel. But no matter the mappings, it's got a very tame and predictable throttle. Only in the direct comparison do you notice how rough and unrefined the 1250 is. The bike feels upset when entering or leaving corners. It feels as though it had more torque at the rear wheel, which activates traction control, and on top of it all, you have a quick shifter that has a hard time shifting gears smoothly. From the get-go, the new quick shifter has been designed together with the engine, which really makes a difference. It works way better. Don't worry though, it's still a shifter for real men. You can feel the gears working inside, and you still need to apply more pressure for the gears to change. But it's precise and predictable pressure that you need. Still, the quick shifter isn't as smooth in changing gears as some competitors. This, I think, will suit the GS's character very well. Quite different, and I have to mention it, is the transmission. Absolutely good news for GS riders. You now need more than 2 gears to ride. With the old model, you used first gear when driving away, then you put it into 6th gear and you left it in 6th all day long. That's how it was. Super annoying actually. Then you're driving 160 or 170 on the highway and you can hear it roar from here and from there because the gearing was simply too short. BMW really took this to heart. Now you generally have a longer transmission with even longer 5th and 6th gears. This translates into great cruising possibilities for the bike. This, however, came also at a cost. Now in 6th gear, you can't accelerate from 30, 40, 50 kilometers an hour the way you used to. Don't get me wrong, it still pulls, but less. Also, I wouldn't say that the 1300 feels more powerful or torquey, even if on paper it should be. That's cause the throttle response is more precise and sensitive. Here, you have the feeling the connection is more direct. I can imagine though that very experienced GS riders like the feedback you got. This sledgehammer smashed into your back feeling, as I said before, can no longer be felt. The edges have been smoothened aesthetically, but also when it comes to the engine. Don't get me wrong though, the new bike is generally faster. I know what it feels like when all of the 1250's 140 Newton meters of torque gets unleashed onto your rear wheel and everything starts to blink and your handlebar starts moving of its own free will. The new GS won't give you the same feeling. It feels more refined, less raw and aggressive, but the power is still there. When riding hard in dynamic mode, which means with stiffer suspension, you can feel a type of rocking movement and you feel the bike being a bit more upset. An easy fix for this is riding either in a very spirited way or in road mode. Then the bike will be very smooth. What else needs to be said? It has to be said that some components, some parts are completely new. The front suspension is completely new. You can see it by the bushings. The problem now is I can't say this is better, that is better, because the two bikes are just too different. You got a trellis frame in the old bike, into which BMW put a lot of effort. Now at the end of the day, I think it was mostly a cost and packaging issue that led to this change. That's just the way it is now. We now have a new main and rear frame made of a sheet metal shell and aluminum, and also a lower swing arm, as well as the new front and rear suspension, Telelever Evo and Paralever Evo. That means the most essential components have seen dramatic changes. Furthermore, the bike weighs less and the center of gravity has moved up due to the new boxer configuration. Also, the gearbox has been moved downwards. It's really difficult for me to say what novelty led to which change. What I can say though is that when rolling at low speeds, I get a strange feeling. The bike feels heavier, yet inspires more confidence, even at low speeds. The confidence is probably owed to that big, heavy, low-slung engine block. And strangely enough, when riding the bike, it instantly feels light. The same goes for the steering, which already at a few kilometers an hour feels very light. What you did lose is this feeling as if you had the training wheels on the bike, making it impossible to fall over. This has been substituted by the lower weight and by the smooth, light-footed nature. And then, on top of that, there's the, yes, I have to say it, the better tuned engine, which simply makes the new bike easier to ride. Both motorcycles, of course, have the legendary two-cylinder boxer engine from Berlin. It should be added that the 1300 has an exact displacement of 1300 cc, unlike the 1250 GS, which actually has 1254 cc. The power went up from 136 horsepower to 145, in both cases at 7,750 RPM. On the 1300 GS, the torque rose to 149 Newton meters at 6,500 RPM, so a tad bit earlier. For me, it's mind-boggling that they managed to reduce the curb weight from 249 kilos to 237 kilos. Let's see how they did it. A big chunk comes from the engine, and from the fact that the powertrain and the crankshaft were moved further to the back. Other weight-saving elements are the new frame and the lithium battery. The standard seat height is 850 millimeters, but now you have the option of lowering the bike dynamically while riding. However, that comes at twice the cost. You have to buy the dynamic suspension adjustment DSA, and then you can buy the sport suspension, which increases the seat height by 20 millimeters and the suspension travel by 20 millimeters. Or you can buy the automatic seat height adjustment, which allows you to reduce the seat height by 20 millimeters. As standard, it comes with 190 millimeters of suspension travel in the front and 200 millimeters in the back. Nice values for an ADV, but of course not as spectacular as any sportier or off-road oriented rally bike. The sport suspension pushes the travel to 210 millimeters in front and 220 millimeters in the rear. Small changes have also been made for the brakes. We now have a 310 millimeters double disc at the front. Previously, we had 305 millimeter double disc at the front, and in the rear, we still have a 285 millimeter single disc brake. The wheelbase has not changed much. It was increased by 4 millimeters on the new GS. The swing arm has become significantly longer, and the tire dimensions have remained the same. The classic GS dimensions, 19-inch front wheel with 120 to 70 tires, and 17-inch rear wheel with 170-60 tires. Now you have 3 different wheel options. A few new features come as standard now. For example, the heated grips are standard, keyless ride, tire pressure monitoring, engine drag torque control, dynamic cruise control and dynamic brake control. But I know, please type it into the comments. There are a lot of problems with the design, I get it. And that's always the case with new motorcycles. I can't hear it anymore. People always complain about the new design being worse than the old. The design is different, but better. It's a real GS. Those lines, look at them, guys. You will still be able to tell it's a GS, even now. I am, however, a bit sad about the trellis frame no longer being used. It was a real masterpiece from an engineering point of view. However, both frames are great products. Now guys, I know how you feel about the old frame, and I feel the same way. Nostalgic feelings come up. But I must say, the new frame is really good. I have nothing bad to say about it when seated. I find that the ergonomics, that the seating position is more comfortable on the new GS. Also, the fact that I have a little more room to move is a welcome change. Interestingly enough, the fact that they moved the Boxer engine makes it less bothering, though it still is to some extent, and especially off-road. And it's also still annoying that you hit your shins occasionally. But it's otherwise less present than on the old GS. I briefly spoke to Rainer Frings, the father of the GS. Let's hear what he had to say. This change from the trellis frame to the composite material, this unbreakable characteristic which the current GS has, that set the bar very high. Achieving the same for the new bike was a big challenge. The 1250 was our fiercest internal competitor, but we said, if we want to develop the GS further, we want to use new technologies, new materials in line with our GS experience. Meaning, we have now built motorcycles for 43 years and they were always made so that you could do it all with them, travel the world and much more. This GS also does that. We have made some changes. Sure, the trellis main and rear frame are a thing of the past. We have made a step into the future. The sheet metal shell main frame, with its welded construction, opens up so many possibilities to us we didn't have with the old trellis tube frame. And it's the same with the rear frame. When you say you want to have this short rear tail with its integrated function, you have to think about new materials and manufacturing processes. We have, believe me, set the bar very high when it comes to the robustness of the bike. We made it so it's at least as bulletproof as the current GS. We have tried everything, we have left no stone unturned. Of course, the bike will have to prove itself again to our customers, but we have done everything we can to guarantee at least the same robustness of today's GSs. Thank you for the statement, and at this opportunity, Rainer can maybe also explain to us how the super fabulous, famous adaptive height control works on the new GS. Under normal riding circumstances, you have one spring characteristic determined by the steel spring here, which displaces a volume, so the piston rod displaces a volume in the shock's hydraulic cylinder. This volume flows out and activates a separating piston, which in turn activates a gas cushion. The whole thing is one spring system with a single spring characteristic. Now where's the trick? We have installed a valve, and when switching over, this places the oil volume, which exerts pressure on a steel spring, which then couples itself with the separating piston and the gas volume. Basically, when switching from the normal spring rate to the dynamic spring rate, you have two operating springs that lead to a new spring characteristic, which is always coupled to the component. Where is the second spring then? The second spring is integrated in this black cylinder. I couldn't have explained it any better. Well, I couldn't have explained it at all, to be honest. Overall, you have way more options with the new GS. You've already had a seemingly infinite list of accessories and optional equipment. Now it's even longer. You can get the GS in different variations. You have to really take your time at the dealer, ask for advice, and know what you want before buying this bike. Who should change to the new R1300 GS? Who should get the new bike? Those who have the GS but just can't cope with the rough and raw characteristic of the engine. I know. The engine of the 1200 was 10 times worse. But this really is a game changer. Those who are simply fed up with the looks need to switch immediately as well. Those who may have had trouble with the options in the past will simply have more configuration options with the new one as well. So there's also less need to resort to off-brand accessories here. You have the normal headlight that comes as standard, and then the Headlight Pro, which comes with the cornering light. Don't worry though, you don't have to pay for hardware you don't get. They're actually two different headlights. The Headlight Pro, which you have to pay extra for, has more LED lights in it, which are then switched on and off depending on the angle. From my point of view, a good and a smart upgrade, plus it sets it apart from the 1250. The seating position is a big difference. You sit a bit more inside the bike in the old one. You have this bulky feel and there's lots to look at in front of you. You almost feel like you have a command bridge in front of you. When I look at it now, it's great. I can see where my money went. You're sitting inside the bike with these wide handlebars. Everything feels good and you think it's all wonderful. Now it's a very different feel when you get on a 1300. You sit on it and you say, what the hell is this? Is this a 750 or what? Where did my bike go? I don't have anything in front of me anymore. Now the bike is underneath you. It also makes it feel less present when riding it. The bike rides the way it looks. It's more accessible. I dare say, and I know it's heresy to do so, but whatever. It's much more a bike for the masses now. It's not anymore only for the GS rider who has always ridden a GS. Any random rider coming from whatever bike, say Yamaha, X, Y, Z, whatever, can step up and say, oh cool, a new bike, let's have a look, let's take it for a ride. And it's going to work super easy and it's going to be mega accessible. And that's probably going to be the biggest criticism. The hardcore GS riders will probably say something along the lines of, yeah, this isn't a man's bike anymore. You can't feel anything and it's so slim and dainty. Yes, yeah, it's like that, yeah, it feels like that, it looks like that, and it also rides like that. And those who dislike it will probably be better off with the 1250. Many will probably already want to know when the adventure is coming. That's another interesting topic. That's still gonna take a while. I don't know whether it is 1 or 2 years, but a 1300 adventure will definitely come. It's only a matter of time, and it will also differ from the base GS, as it was the case with the 1250. That much I can reveal. And last but not least, thumbs up for Hispania Tours. Hispania Tours is a Styrian company, an Austrian company, located not far from Malaga airport. They have 80 BMWs standing there, all for rent. They gave us one again for this comparison test. And he has also ordered, I think, 50 new GSs. Alright, let's take a look at the price level of the current R1250 GSs, price ascending. Here are the first offers. They start from about 12,000 euros. You can already see how well this model holds its value. With almost 50,000 kilometers, they still cost 15, 16, 17,000 euros. These are used prices in Germany though, so do be careful. In Austria, the prices are even higher due to the taxes. And I would really like to know what the prices in the English-speaking countries are. So do let me know in the comments down below. I dare predict that these GS now will not dramatically lose their value. That was also the case back then when the 1250 came out. The prices of the 1200 were pretty stable. The models are pretty popular. They have their fan base. And there are many listings. And they really keep their value, you have to say. Now, if you sort by new bikes only, look at them. This 1250 GS, currently on the German market, 22,000 euros. I find that fascinating, that the price difference between bikes with 0 kilometers and 50,000 kilometers is not that dramatic. Yeah, a few thousand grand, but you can get reasonably cheap ones. Only thing being that the pricing of the new 1300 GS is very attractive. Now, I see a problem for dealers to still have 1250 GSs in stock lying around, because the MSRP of the new bike is simply too good when compared to the 1250. In the 1000 PS marketplace, you can get a new 1300 GS for about 25,000 euros. That would be 21,000 pounds and 25,000 US dollars. And you'll have to pay about the same for the 1250. Of course, you can negotiate with the dealers, but at the end of the day, in a direct comparison, the new GS is way more attractive with all its new standard features. Now, I hope I have answered all the questions. Guys, and if I didn't, let me know. Please post them down below. Please do so. I promise you, I will answer them. Because I still have a 1250 GS. My previous one that I had, I sold to my father-in-law. He has it. The previous 1200 GS I had, the father-in-law sold to his friend. It's still within reach too, and we have already put in an order for a 1300 GS. That means we have access to the last 3 model generation and can access them at any time. The 1300 GS will be delivered in the next few days, and with it we will answer many questions for you. We're planning a relentless endurance test. If you have any questions, post them down below. Feel free to do so. I thank you for watching. We all thank you for watching, and make sure to like and subscribe to the channel to watch our future videos. Cheers and thank you for everything. Goodbye.
Ich bin für euch da. MFG, euer NastyNils.